There. Okay, hi, I am Franny Brewer from Big Island Invasive Species Committee, and I'm the chair of the Natural Environment RCA for Puna activation. And I want to thank you all for joining us today for this little presentation. This is the fifth in a series that we started over the summer to share with folks in the community about what is going on in the natural environment in Puna, because we have a lot of great work going on and a lot of awesome organizations that are out there that are taking care of our natural environment. And we want to introduce you to those people who are doing that work and get a little bit more understanding about what is going on out there. So we have two presenters today from Mālama Puna, which is a nonprofit located right there in Pahoa, but they do work throughout Puna, and they've been around quite a long time and done some awesome work. So today we have with us Ann Kobsa and Diga Kern, who are here to talk about the projects that they are doing in the Puna natural environment. And I think Diga's going to go first. Is that correct, Diga? You'll be the first presenter? Okay, so Diga actually has 30 years of living and working in Puna, so really familiar with that natural environment. He focuses mostly on regenerative food growing, but he's also worked in education, nonprofit, still doing a lot of education and nonprofit. At one point, Diga, I read in your bio that you managed and milked dairy cows for, I'm imagining that was a daily kind of requirement. Cows, I can hear them from my house and they are very demanding. But also teaching at Haas as a former teacher. Oh my gosh, like what's more demanding, middle schoolers or dairy cows? I'm not sure. And musical director, so quite the Renaissance man. And since 2019, you've been working with Mālama Puna in the Halepua'a section of the Nānāwale Forest Reserve doing restoration work there. And Diga is currently the chair of the Kauai Homeowners or Community Association. And then we have Ann, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Ann now for, oh my God, 15 years. It's been quite a long time. Ann is a former academic research biologist, I should say Dr. Ann Kobsa, who has been living off-grid and eating from the land in Lower Puna for 23 years. And she has been the vice president of Mālama Puna for 22 of those years. She's directed the Big Island Red Mangrove Eradication Project, which was very successful. I think Pele has finished that project off for you now. But she loves planting most of all, and she does a lot of that planting, forest restoration right on her own 9 acres down there in Va'ava'a, and works in the surrounding forest reserve and the coastal areas. And she runs a nursery that supplies native plants. And our very first presentation in this series from Jaya Dupuy of Hawaii Environmental Restoration, she talks about a lot of the plants that she's outplanting in the Kea'ohana forest area, and Ann is the supplier of those wonderful native plants. So we're excited to have them both here today. And I am recording this, so it will be available on the BISC YouTube channel and also on, I believe, the Natural Environment. The county folks are going to share it out as well. So if you don't get to watch the whole thing or you want to share this with people later, please feel free to do that. This should be up in a few days. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Diga, who, again, in your bio, I read that you like to make video, and you have video for us to watch today. So it's a little different than what we're used to with this series. We're going to actually get to watch some great moving shots. And you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Uh-oh, I think Diga's frozen now. Of course, it worked fine earlier.
Hear me?
Well, maybe if he starts screen
Okay,
sharing.
there it is. I was just gonna say, there it is. Okay, do you want to go ahead and you can, if you want to add anything that I missed, and you're more than welcome to go ahead and start screen sharing whenever you're ready.
Okay, I would, I kind of prefer to speak extemporaneously, but I think the power of this video footage is important, and there's a lot of bits that I'd like to get in. So I think that, you know, what I'm going to be reading is more or less synced with the video. So let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, can you guys see the video?
It's a little bit of a delay,
Yep.
so it's just coming in now. There it is.
Okay, so my background is, oh, here we go. So from its inception, Mālama o Puna has been devoted to preserving, protecting, and restoring precious coastal wetland forests within the ahupua'as of Kula, Pu'ua, Kahubai, and Nānāwale. This overview map shows the geographic extent of forest restoration activities in the area. Work began in the early 2000s with Myconia control in partnership with Operation Myconia and Haas, leading to initial outplantings in the Halipua'a section of the Nānāwale Forest Reserve. Some of the original ohe keiki that are just out here are now over 25-foot tall, mature trees. So Halipua'a forest restoration has grown to become a major project for MOP, and we'll share more extensively about that later. The Halipua'a forest borders Government Beach Road, formerly part of the King's Trail encircling our island. And this one-lane corridor stands as a picturesque remnant of old Hawaii, lined with a cool canopy of 352 old-growth mango trees. Mālama o Puna and the Kauai Community Association have for over 25 years been diligent in protecting this road from widening and these trees from being cut. In 2012, MOP successfully petitioned to have the corridor protected as exceptional trees by the county's Arborist Advisory Committee. And just across the beach road from Halipua'a are the Waiale lands, 157 acres of Hawaiian cultural and coastal landscape descending to the sea. After years of advocacy and volunteer work, last December, Mālama o Puna's longtime goal was finally realized, of having this land be perpetually protected through the county's Public Lands, Open Space, and Natural Resource Preservation Act. Yay! Enabled by a stewardship grant, 2023 promises an expansion of our volunteer roster and numerous opportunities for community members to become involved in this beautiful land. And finally, to the north of Waiale is KSBE's Kahubai property, rich in archaeology, including ancient canoe sheds, curated by Heiau architect Keone Kalave. Kamehameha School students are currently being taught traditional culture at this site. Keone embodies a wealth of mo'olelo about this area, and its lineal descendant of Waiale will be working closely with MOP as the combined 1 mile of coastline is protected and managed. To the south of Waiale are 1960 and 2018 lava flows extending all the way to Kumakahi, Wahipana, where Ann has volunteered for years outplanting native trees, shrubs, and grasses. Currently, plans are in the works to restore 11 ancient barriers, that most sacred of sites. Altogether, these lands contain some of the last low elevation wetland tropical forests in Hawaii. Their preciousness is underscored by the stark a'a and pahoehoe of very recent lava flows. They provide MOP with an important and unique opportunity to work hand in hand with Native Hawaiian descendants and local residents to develop a durable and equitable management strategy that stays resilient to tourism and development by maintaining key protections of the character of the Aina. So I'll go into Halipua'a now. My background is in organic farming and permaculture, and I've lived in this area of Hawaii for 30 years, which gives me a lot of familiarity with the botany and plant growth processes here. In 2019, Mālama o Puna opened up a new area of expertise for me with the award of a series of microgrants to carry on the restoration work Ann started years ago, freeing her energy to manage nursery and stay involved in the wider restoration efforts happening across the island. Halipua'a State Forest Reserve is a significant repository of native and canoe species. The forest is particularly dominated by hala, for which this part of Puna is famous for its mats and baskets. Ohia has been devastated by the rapid ohia death disease, but we're planting more keiki. Exotic species such as mango and Eucalyptus robusta help to fill in the canopy, as does the Polynesian kukui and a mix of introduced weed trees. In the understory, canoe plants such as tea and abahupuhi ginger hold space against non-native vines and shrubs. Once larger areas of mature plants were extant, from Ohe to Lama and Hapu'u. Disease in pigs have taken a significant toll, especially over the last 20 years. Mālama o Puna is doing our small part to preserve and renew diversity in the face of these challenges. Under permit from the State Division of Forestry and Wildlife, we've developed a 1 mile long native restoration corridor, weaving through a beautiful remnant native forest and mixed exotics. Interspersed along this route are 15 plots with over 500 well-maintained new native species outplantings chosen from 15 species. This trail also serves as a little fire ant barrier, keeping the forest free of this noxious invasive pest, which threatens from adjoining private properties. The forest simply can't be enjoyed when LFA are present. Vegetation can't be touched or brushed by, and ground can't be sat upon without irritating stings happening. Using rigorous best practices, I have experienced that little fire ants can be kept out of wet forests that have not yet encroached upon. Stopping them before they enter is orders of magnitude easier than removing them once they've arrived. Due to Ann's prescience and hard work, a border trail exists along the back edge of key Papaya Farms Road and railroad properties. For many years, Ann did this work, but now since 2019, I have every 6 weeks sprayed the water-based barrier treatment bifenthrin along what is now a 2/3 of a mile fire ant barrier. To maintain the barrier, tall non-native trees such as albizia, cecropia, gunpowder, and malokia have needed to be felled or poisoned in order to prevent tree-to-tree contact across the trail. I also regularly trim Vibe and pull Clydenia to reduce biomass used by the ants to cross the trail. Every 12 weeks, I test the entire forest side of this trail every 15 feet for little fire ants. To do so, we use sticks of bamboo from the Canoe Ohe variety growing in the forest, painted with a bright color for recovery, and dabbed with a bit of peanut butter as an attractant. Within 90 minutes, if ants are present, they'll show up on the peanut butter sticks, which I methodically collect and check with magnifying lens. For the instances in which ants have managed to cross the trail since the previous bifenthrin treatment, I'm able to grid test the extent of the incursion and then treat the infested area with bifenthrin. Yearly, I traverse a rougher parallel trail approximately 25 feet further into the forest, testing as I go. This gives reasonable assurance that a pocket of fire ants hasn't gotten past the main barrier to spread extensively in the forest, unbeknownst to me. It's also possible with significant effort to eradicate LFA from a small section of forest. This is currently being undertaken in partnership with a family whose LFA infestation has encroached into the forest reserve beyond the boundary. On the forest side, a thorough clearing of non-native weed trees and underbrush allows the infested area to be penetrated with a methodical gel bait poison treatment. Meanwhile, the landowner clears, tramples, and baits the private side of the infestation. 2 gel bait treatments over the course of 3 weeks, alternating between peanut butter and liver powder for attractant, renders the area 95% fire ant free. Follow-up testing helps eliminate the last 5%. Volunteer crews have been twice recruited to plant native trees into these plots. The areas are prepared for planting by assembling fallen logs and branches into pig protection rings. Additional protection is offered by cage sticks, which are pointed pieces of Vibe pounded into the ground around a sapling. A 2014 private donation of nearby greenhouse space has allowed an extensive native plant nursery to be established, increasing the effectiveness of MOP's Halepua'a work. The nursery at Halehe'e is accessed for a selection of keiki, which can be delivered either by vehicle or by wheelbarrow to the forest entrance. Since the planting area and paths have already been established with grant funds, volunteer efforts can be focused on planting and watering trees, less vigorous and skilled work. It's through MOP's volunteer network that every real grant dollar leverages 100% match in donated time, keiki, and supplies. We hope that this adopt a forest model can demonstrate to other landowners along the edges of precious lands the viability of doing their part to Mālama Aina. The results of almost 4 years' labor are mixed. Despite protections, pigs continue to destroy about 20% of plantings, and rod continues to eat away at mature ohia. Other pests like the twig borer and root rot or wilt disease can quickly devastate pico and kalea trees. Successes are also significant, with beautiful specimens of hapu'u, lamaki, and akia returned to many areas. Ohe has been the star species, with vigorous growth and until recently resistance to disease. Replantings of hala are also ensuring that this backbone species, also susceptible to pigs at a young age, continues to proliferate throughout the corridor. The forest thrives with fungal microlife, adding a little studied dimension to the forest's complexity and diversity. And I think that Anne wanted to say a little piece about railroad, which actually touches on to Halepua'a. So is it possible for this video to roll while she speaks?
No, you could just pause it. Either way.
Yeah, did you want to
the
share your
railroad-
screen, Anne, or are you just going to talk?
Oh no, I don't need to at this point. I'll just
Okay.
say Railroad
Okay.
Avenue traverses the forest reserve. And it has become a really great bike route for some of us in the community to get to Pahoa. And during the 2018 eruption, the county had that bulldozed, and because it basically had been shut down since the hurricane felled a bunch of trees on it. So they opened it up and they created this huge corridor with a lot of light and lots of weeds. So I've been planting with help of volunteers ohe trees along there, and last count about 50 of them were surviving and growing fast. So hopefully we can create some more shade and minimize the maintenance, because now we have to hack the cane grass back at intervals, and also the ohe will make it a more beautiful ride. Back to Diga.
Okay, we'll just watch the finish of this little piece of hapu'u here. And then I'm going to speak next about the Waiale lands for 3 or 4 minutes. And then the rest of our presentation is going to be with Anne, and we'll both have our mics on, and we'll just have our faces, and we'll just be more talking about what's happening. So in 2000, here's a bit more on the Halepua'a. Actually, I'd like for Anne to talk about what's been happening with Sertandra.
Okay, so there were a lot of ha'ivale, Sertandra nānāwalensis, in the Halepua'a when I first started looking around, but it dwindled down to 3, and the plant extinction prevention program came and made fences around them. But despite that, they've continued to decline. And that's one of the 2 endangered species that I've been propagating. So propagating it for trying to keep it here, which the success has been pretty limited. But there's at least 1 plant in each of the enclosures still. Some of them are, and then there's some keiki as well that I planted. But also I'm supplying some of those plants for Ke'ohana, which is where the healthiest individuals are currently, or the highest numbers anyway. I just learned that there's some at Puna in one of the pu'u there, so that's really exciting. That means there's 3 places where this plant remains, and so that ties this seminar to the meeting to Jaya's and Kalena's presentations earlier in the series, where we all have that one very, very rare plant in common between our areas that we're restoring. Is that enough, Diga, or should I go on?
You can go on a bit more.
That was the presence of Sertandra nānāwalensis and the old ohe trees were the reason we still have a forest reserve here, actually, because in 1979, there was a proposal to bulldoze this forest reserve for papaya cultivation. And the head of the DLNR at the time, Liebert Landgraf, was so sure it was going to go through that he actually started bulldozed 75 acres. But there was a big public outcry and a botanical survey was done, and they found that the Ha'ivale, the Sertandra, species that had never been seen before and was named after this forest reserve as a result of that. And then they found the ohe trees, and they said because of those two species, this area should be protected. And the plan was scrapped and the bulldozing stopped. So I want to make sure those two species stick around as more of a reason for protecting this forest.
Thanks for adding that, and that's real kind of crucial history. And I still hope to get to Lyman Perry and have a meeting, and or is it Perry Lyman, and get some of the archival documents about that. Okay, why don't I move forward to Waiale? In 2006, with recent passage of the County Public Lands, Open Space and Natural Resource Preservation Act, MOP nominated the Waiale land for purchase. And then Councilwoman Emily Nānāwale introduced Resolution 256 for the purchase. In 2018, MOP again nominated the parcel for purchase, and the Ponk Ad Hoc Committee paid a site visit in April of that year. At their disposal was a brand new 12-page preliminary archaeological survey by Teresa Donham entitled Historical, Cultural, and Art Resources, the Waiale Parcel. This extremely generous donation of professional time did much to substantiate that Waiale fit all of the Ponk criteria, and also allows interested readers to learn more about the depth of meaning in the cultural landscape of this area. In subsequent years, Ponk Commission member and MOP President Renee Siracusa continued to press for this purchase. In May of 2019, Ashley Perkovitz and Matt Kaniali'i Kleinfelder and staff joined MOP for a site visit. They were both transported to Old Hawaii and viscerally understood the importance of preserving this land and creating a means for people and children to experience the natural beauty there. Meanwhile, a MOP/KCA partnership continued with trash removal, organizing 2 well-attended events for Fall Equinox 2019, and again 5 weeks later. And then just last year, with the help of Mayor Roth and both current Puna councilors, this purchase finally took place. So during the first half of 2022, MOP has been reaching out to descendants and stakeholders in the Hawaiian community, soliciting their involvement in the development of a management plan for the property. A stewardship grant was submitted to the maintenance fund and was awarded. So for 2023, this grant will allow rough boundary trails to be established on the property's perimeter in order to inventory for little fire ants. Current volunteer LFA control will be funded, as will repairs to the trail. A botanical survey and an archaeological reconnaissance survey will both be conducted. Volunteer crews will be mobilized to begin removing the most invasive non-native species. But perhaps what is most noteworthy about this grant is the significant funding earmarked to engage Native Hawaiians in the development of a model for a steering committee. This process will attempt to create an equitable balance of decision-making power among various stakeholders, guided ultimately by the land's lineal descendant, Keone Kalave. The anticipated result is a durable and diverse group of leaders congealing to take on management for 2024 and beyond. So we can say a little bit more about Waiale right now. If there's anything you'd like to add, Ann.
Just that it's a really nice cultural forest. It's got, well, there's parts that are better than others, and then the adjacent land is also really nice. It's still in private hands, but the trail to Waiale is really an ancient trail. It has paving stones and rock walls on either side, and it's raised up in portions, and there's so much archaeology in the 2 village sites that are on the property. Then the cultural forest is huge, kukui and ulu, massive ulu trees, and lots of mountain apple and noni and lots of hala. And then there's even these pretty rare endemic ferns in the understory, suggesting that it's been pretty intact, even though the pigs in the area have gotten pretty bad in recent years. There's a lot of and definitely a need for pig control, but hopefully now that it's public, we can do some trapping or something there to get the pig population under control.
And I was just talking to Keone, who he's going to be spending more and more time now in the area because he has family land that's just right at the corner of Papaya Farms Road that he's developing as an education site for himself. So Keone is going to be around more, and he told me he'd love to see the old trail be restored. So that's probably something that's going to happen eventually. So we're both super excited to see just how the management of this land is going to play out now that we finally have permission to, legitimately take care of it. So that's basically all that I have to present, and I appreciate you all bearing with the printed out narration, and hopefully there will be time for questions at the end, but let's hand it to Ann now.
Okay, I just wanted to mention about Keone. He's such a wonderful man. He has so much knowledge of this area. His great grandparents were buried at Waiale. And I've met him when I first nominated the property back in 2006 to make sure that he was okay with that. But he wasn't really very involved. He wasn't very responsive. And it's really Amadeo, who's on the board of MOP, who's kind of opened the door with Keone. He has his ear, and he's gotten him to come to meetings, and he's just such a wonderful, humble man and has just so much knowledge. So I'm really grateful for that. And just in general, grateful for so much participation, collaboration between our community and the Hawaiians who have the kuleana of the area, including Iopa Mauna Kea also. So that's really encouraging for me. Okay. So this is an example of one of the early ohe plantings I did. I'm really excited to see these coming now above the hollow canopy of the forest. And the 25 ohe, or 20 or so ohe trees that were in this forest when I first started looking around, back around 2000, they've all been killed by pigs. So we've planted so many, and hopefully some of them are going to get to be as big as those original ohe trees that were lost, and hopefully the pigs won't. So far they haven't seemed to learn to like the taste of the bark. Hope it stays that way. This is one of the kolea plantings with the example of the barrier sticks around it. It's just a crisscrossing of Vive sticks, which is pretty effective when it's out in the open like this. In areas where there's thick growth of Nephrolepis, the sword ferns, they'll just plow right through it because they don't have an easy way around, but most of the time it's pretty effective. And that was kolea. This is one of the ohe plantings with a similar kind of situation with sticks. Here's the picture of the inside of the greenhouse, which is at Halehe'e. This space donated generously by David Anderson. And this started growing here in 2014, and it really helps to have this wonderful space to be able to produce a lot of native plants for both our projects here and also Jaya's work in Kea'ohana. This is the plants getting ready, they're hardening off, getting ready to go out to Kea'ohana for a volunteer planting day we had there. So this is one of the endangered species I'm propagating. I mentioned already the Ha'ivale or Sutandra. The other endangered species I'm propagating is Ishimambaroni, common name Hilo beach grass, which is a bit of a misnomer, but it is growing in Puna and between Puna and Hilo, and then there's a little bit on Maui. So this one I've had quite a bit of success with. The only places I'm legally allowed to plant it are the 2 forest reserves that have shoreline in Puna, which are the Honolulu section of the Nānāwale and the Mālama Key forest reserves. And unless there's a drought, most of the plantings do pretty well. I have had a problem with them getting dug up by mongooses. So I sprinkle some mint leaves around the plantings when I first do it. And I I have seen that helps a lot to keep the mongooses from digging them up because they want to dig up everything that's new in their area. This is a bad photo, but it's just one patch that was one of my outplants down in Mālama Key that did so well. My friend took a picture of it with her cell phone. So these are pictures of the Sertandra nānāwalensis, or hot ivale, and this was in Halepua. There were about 50 of these plants in this one area that shrank down to one plant, which got fenced by PEP. But yeah, it's being pushed out of its former range by warming and drying trends. So it's happier now up at Keohana and Puna. Maybe eventually we won't be able to have it here, but I'm not ready to give up yet. These are the fruits. It's related to African violet. It has sort of succulent leaves. Very sweet little plant. Also, I've been propagating ohia, and the ohia, everyone here loves ohia, I'm sure. The Ohia Love Fest is coming up November 19th. It's going to be in Pahoa at the community center. I'm not sure what time. I don't know if you know the time yet, Franny, but these are some of the ohias I propagate on chunks of coconut husk, sprinkle the seeds. I found the best germination on the coconut husk. And I'm going to be demonstrating this method at the Ohia Love Fest. So come and check it out. So I'm growing them up and I'm getting them bigger, and then I'm planting them out. This is one naturally occurring ohia that's growing on a dead log. And that's encouraging to see, but it doesn't happen very often. Here's an outplant. This one happens to be at Cape Kumukahi. I don't have any pictures, unfortunately, of my plantings along the highways, but I have been planting along Highway 137, Beach Road, and 132 at the edges of the 2018 lava flows, which it's young lava. It's not really ready for trees yet, but my thinking is that these areas are surrounded by weed trees, and this is where the ohia forest can establish itself on the young lava. And by the time this lava is ready for ohia trees, there's not going to be any seeds because there's only weed trees around. So the albesias and the ironwoods will take over. So I'm finding those few places where ohia tree can be supported, where there just happens to be some fine material to hold the moisture, and planting, and they're actually doing pretty well, and unless it comes a drought right after I plant. But look for them as you drive along those highways. You might see them. And if you have extra water and it's a dry time, give them a little drink, visit with them. And if you see any ironwoods or albesias sprouting up on the shoulders of the road, pull them out. I've done that. Okay, so that planting was actually Kumukahi, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my plantings at Kumukahi, which I think started around 2014 when I established my first nursery in the neighborhood. It was a place to put ohe makai. So this area is interesting because it's pretty barren, but it's older substrate. I think it's between 450 and 700 years old, surrounded by 1960 lava flow. So what must have happened is there was forest there and it burned during the lava flow, or all the vegetation was killed by fumes. But there's a few ma'u ferns growing, used mostly from cracks, and a few old pukiave that probably came back from roots from after most of the vegetation died off. And then I've been adding the ohe makais, which I hope this can become a refuge for them, because there's only one of these remaining on this side of the island that's naturally occurring. That's down in Kalapana. There were more, but they got wiped out by the lava in the 2000s. So so far they're doing pretty well at Kumukahi. Pukiave, I'm planting new ones. Ule likes it there. Here's another ohia. And that's it for my planting slides. Diga, do you have do you want to screen share and have your conclusion video run?
Yeah, and then we'll just talk a little bit, and then maybe we have time for questions. I click share screen.
I have to stop. I don't know if I said this, but I meant to say it, that by the time the new lava has a lot of lichens growing on it and it's ready for ohia, my plantings will hopefully be supplying the seeds for that, so that we can have a new ohia forest. There's a lot of new lava out there.
And just a little bit more of a piece about Kumukahi, which is receiving a lot of attention right now. And the lineal descendants there, Keone Kalave is also a lineal descendant there, as is Kekiloa Kekipi. And they are very closely involved in the planning process for any development that might happen there, including the reopening of the Lighthouse Road. And there's a lot of just information and volunteer work and advocacy coming out about Kumukahi being Wahipana. It's one of the most sacred sites for Hawaii, and anybody who's interested in getting a fairly new document that goes extensively and comprehensively into the meaning of Kumukahi and just a trove of documents about that site, can find this November 2021 paper called "The Land of Puna is Famous for the Sun's First Appearance at Kumukahi, a resource guide of traditions and history of Kumukahi." So if you love Puna, you love Hawaiian culture, and you want to know, it's by Meili and Meili, it's fantastic. So to kind of summarize,
I just want to.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry. When I found out that Iopa Mauna Kea is after the eruption, I found out he's taken that as his kuleana, and I didn't know that. But so I made sure to ask him about the plantings out there, and he loves it. So I'm excited to continue with that, with his approval.
So the sheer natural beauty of these forests is truly unrivaled. As a visitor, one can be beckoned from sun-parched open spaces down silhouetted trails into the cool, embracing, dank verdancy of true jungle. Similarly hard to quantify, but scientifically substantiated, are the geoclimatic roles that forests play, both in terms of sequestering carbon and attracting precipitation. In our view, the eastern point of Hawaii, cracked and strewn with volcanic rifts and flows, is no place for industrial or commercial development. To live here requires a degree of non-attachment not typical of today's security and ownership-based societies. The flux between Pua'a and Pele touches something deep about existence, about the play between creation and destruction, life and death. Let these places remain trodden by foot only. As we're able, let us plant more trees, even in the knowledge their lives could come to an untimely end. Let us develop protocols and registration/reservation systems for Pono access to the areas of heavy use, and programs to judiciously introduce school children and sympathetic visitors for educational experiences. So that's kind of Ann's and my orientation about these lands, and we'll just run this last little collection of fungus while Ann puts in her own conclusion.
I guess my conclusion would be that it's a hard time for native Hawaiian ecosystems, especially down here in the lower elevations where there's so much. It seems like every week there's a new pest or disease, and it's a real uphill battle. But we're trying to hold on to at least some remnants. And I felt so much kinship with Jaya and Kalena and their stories of restoration. And when Jaya and Kalena and I visited Waiʻokeleo Puna a few months ago together, it was just nice to have that kinship and support. And this series is also encouraging in that way, because it brings us together, those of us who care about preserving these native ecosystems that are really experiencing hard times. So let's do what we can and get out there and keep planting.
And Ann and I are contact people for anybody who would like to volunteer, because there's a lot of stuff coming up. On New Year's Eve day, we're going to do a walk down Wailea and carry out some trash. So everybody's welcome to come to that. And we're going to be mobilizing for 2023. So definitely get our email.
You froze a little bit there, Diga, but I think we got a lot of it. And I would love, as part of the RCA, it would be great if we got a list of those opportunities, and I'd be happy to have them put out on the RCA contact list to all the folks that are involved, because people do contact looking for volunteer opportunities. And, you know, there wasn't, everything kind of went dormant a little bit for a couple of years. I wonder why. And so now there's openings for people to actually get out and do some stuff and be outdoors and, you know, kind of separate from each other. So it's, you know, a safe way to engage and work with your community. So if you send that stuff over to me, I'd be happy to put that out on our different channels.
Okay, we'll do that for sure.
Yeah, this was great. This was so informative to me. I feel like I learned so much. Thank you guys. It was wonderful. I'm really excited. One of the things I mentioned in the chat when you were talking about that bike path, and I said, I want to ride that bike path. And JC Greg said, where is that exactly? Can you share where that bike path is? And I know you said it's Railroad Ave down in Nānāwale. Is that correct?
Correct. And it's not open to vehicles, of course. Because even the road to access it is, well, it goes from, it comes from the beach road side up Cinder Road. It's how you would get to it in a car. We have the neighborhood ways to get to it, but if you're on a bike, also on the beach road, you can go up Cinder Road to Railroad and then just keep going. There's a cement barricade that keeps the cars out, and you continue on and enter the forest reserve. And then on the other side, you come to a papaya field road that takes you up to the bottom of the Nānāwale subdivision. Or you can continue on from there through the Honolulu section of the forest of the Nānāwale into Hawaiian Beaches. And then from there you can continue on into Hawaiian Paradise Park. And I was negligent in the beginning, not introducing someone you probably already know, but Paige Else is here, and she's our MOP president. So thanks for being here, Paige.
Yeah, thanks, Paige.
Yes, thank you, Paige. And
my pleasure. These guys do the work. So I did have a couple questions for them if we're at that point.
Yes. Hit them up.
they're actually kind of two different topics, and the second one, Franny, you probably can pitch in on too, and other people on the call. But in the beginning, I think, Diga, you were talking about Halepua and the pig problems and the plants. I think you said some of the plants that you had outplanted had certain problems like roof rot or roof rot. I'm thinking about my roof, root rot. And I'm wondering if your strategies are changing about what plants you're gonna put out, or you're just gonna try again and hope that you can get the plants through these problems. So I'm asking if you have a change in strategy and what types of plants to put out. And then the second big topic is pigs and what to do about pigs.
Well,
Yeah,
I can kind of speak to both of those maybe.
Go ahead.
It's interesting because the Kopiko and the Kolea were the species that had the most problems with mortality after outplanting, and it was almost always a twig borer. The black twig borer is just, it just loves, especially Kolea. And so over and over, we would find dead trees and look and see the little drill holes, and the whole top of the tree would be dead, which means the whole tree dies generally. Occasionally they resprout from the base, but interestingly though, recently I haven't been seeing that anymore. I've been seeing them just drop dead in apparent wilt disease, and when I pull them up, the whole root system is rotten. So I don't know if it's a new thing, just something that just came to this area, and really sadly, it's starting to affect the ohays. I don't know if it's the same species or a different one, but the ohays used to be invincible. So now we're seeing that, and that seems localized to certain areas. But I just recently started trying root inoculants. I mean, I got these inoculants that have a combination of mycorrhizal fungi and beneficial bacteria, and I'm doing some tests with those to see if that could help. I always used to collect some soil from underneath healthy mama trees and try to put that on the roots, but that's not always easy to find healthy mama trees. So that's my current strategy, is to try those inoculants and see if that can help. And then with the pigs, well, I have the forest reserve on 2 sides of me, and that's where the corridor is, and I just kill as many as I can. And then Diga's right next to me, and he's going to start doing the same thing, right, Diga?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And
Is there,
you know,
is there any hope for bringing in hunters, or is that not likely? I mean, I know, Franny, it's such a big problem in many locations, and MOP
Yeah.
has some ideas. We applied for an infrastructure grant to, I think, but it's really beyond that. It's just such a huge issue in many locations.
Yeah, it really is. And it's definitely getting worse. I mean, we're getting more reports than ever about pigs, and I don't know that there's enough hunters to even keep up with demand. Even, you know, people saying, come to my property, you can just do whatever you want, take as many pigs as you want. And most hunters are saying, yeah, I've got plenty of opportunity. So I think what we've been encouraging people is to talk to your county and state representatives, because there is, anytime there's a proposal for the state to do anything with game animals, there's a very vocal minority who push back. I think that's kind of a knee jerk that dates way back into like the 80s and 90s. That there was real concerns then about, you know, the state doing things without talking to anybody in the neighborhood. But now that we have so many pigs, some people still think, oh, you know, they're going to try to eradicate pigs, which is literally impossible. And I think that our representatives need to hear from everyone else who's dealing with pigs, that the only people they're hearing from are not just hunters, that and actually there's a lot of younger hunters now who are very much into understanding that there needs to be management. So that's changing, but there's still this vocal small amount of people who will call their representatives and really, really push on no action. They don't want any action on pigs at all, but it's not keeping up with the demand of what people need. So I think our representatives just need to hear from the folks who are struggling. Our farmers are struggling. We get a lot of people calling us who are farmers that, you know, they're losing food, and they're losing yield, and they're losing income because of pigs. So, you know, people need to understand this is an economic problem as well as a nuisance problem. And I don't think the state's going to be pushed to do anything until there's more of an overwhelming kind of push from the larger, broader community that, like, hey, some kind of line has to be drawn where we're helping people with pigs. So not great advice, but that's what we have right now.
mhm.
People are on their own.
I
pretty
do-
much.
We tended to
I just-
have to move away from certain species that the pig really likes, like lolu particularly, and then also hapu'u. Like, they can smell it, they can taste it, they're going to go in there and bite it, even if it's protected. And then similarly with some of the other diseases, is moving towards things like hala, and, you know, the ohia keiki, and things that aren't showing an immediate vulnerability to disease, just working with what we have that's not showing so much vulnerability, in order to keep the plantings happening. So that's
And
kind
of
of how
course
we're
there's like impending vulnerability, because, you know, so my thing is, like, I'm thinking on this big scale of like the whole island or whatever, and the whole state, and there's a hala scale that's attacking hala in Maui and Honolulu, in on Oahu, that really takes out hala, and we don't have it here yet, but we see these things moving around, and we don't have biosecurity. It's really frightening that something that seems really strong, like ohia, you know, 15 years ago, is like, oh, this is really strong, this is a solid plant, and now ohia is vulnerable. Like, we're seeing more vulnerability coming in from outside, and so it worries me, because it's like, all right, we got hala, we can do hala. It's like, all we need is one person to bring one infected piece of hala, and it could disrupt that whole thing. So
yeah, you're right.
oh man,
The pigs
you
also
guys
love
are
to eat
doing
the
the work.
hala. The pigs
Do
love to
they?
eat the hollow babies. They eat it like it's like a heart of palm. They just love it, and it kills the young tree. It's really sad, but yeah, I've been dreading the arrival of that scale.
Yeah, me too. It's like every time somebody mentions challah, I don't know why, but that's like comes to my head. Like, please don't let it be that you think you saw scale. Please don't let it be that you think you saw scale. So, unfortunately, everybody
is
should
a
be keeping their
really-
eye out for that. Yeah.
It is a really good, strong canopy species, and it makes so much leaf litter that helps suppress the weeds. It also suppresses some of the native diversity, but at least it can keep a lot of the weeds out.
So I have a question for you guys. One of the things that we have our Plant Pono program, and we really want to get more people planting in their backyards, especially with Puna, where people have 1, 2, 3 acres, 5 acres, 6 acres. What's the best way for people to go about getting a hold of some of these plants and getting the right plants into their backyard and helping to make this, work that you guys are doing spread out a little bit more? What would you recommend? Tough one.
Yeah, I tend to want my babies to go into the forest where I know they're going to be taken care of and nurtured. But sometimes I bring them to events and sell a few of them or give them away. But yeah,
I know
I guess we
I've
need
seen
more
at
people
least-
propagating them.
Yeah, I've seen at least 3 native species being sold at Maku'u market. Actually, there's quite a nursery scene happening at Maku'u. So for some of the, more popular ones like Mamaki and Hapu'u, you can purchase them there.
Oh, that's great. I
At
did
the
not realize.
Ohia Love Fest, I'll be teaching people how to grow ohia. They can do
Yay.
their own.
And in fact,
Do you
at
know the
Ohia Love
time
Fest-
for that?
Yes, it's
Franny?
going to be at 10 and 2. I did put the link in the chat, and we will have an
great.
Ohia giveaway if people sign up for the little care workshop to learn how to care for Ohia. We're having it at 9 o'clock and then another one at 1 o'clock. If you pre-register for that, you actually get to take home an Ohia in a pot. So you guys are the first to hear that little secret because we just did the Eventbrite yesterday. So if you want to sign up for that, go ahead to that link because I have a feeling those are going to fill up pretty quick.
I was going to ask before you guys got into the discussion about pigs. I usually ask people, well, are there more or the same or less pigs, in your area there? And the state biologists would say, oh, the same number of pigs, are just in different places, moving around and that sort of thing. But one thing, you should also contact your game management advisory commission member representative for your area and let them know about the problem. And because ultimately, even if you go through your elected officials, it's going to go to that committee to they're going to refer that to the committee for solutions there. And in terms of hunters, we have some data that kind of shows that that's not going to do it. It's got to be really a pretty big concerted effort. Not just a pig killed here and there once in a while. So, and that's it. Yeah. And then about native plants, at our volcano farmers market, we have a vendor that comes every week and sells a whole slew of really nice native plants. And I have purchased several ohe trees, and they're growing gangbusters up here in Volcano. And I can't remember their names. I could look it up and share it with you. But any
Is
Sunday
it
morning.
Zoe?
I'm not sure. It's an older lady and her younger sons. And but any Sunday morning you want to come up here, you can buy a whole slew of native plants. Really nice ones.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know about that either. I'm like learning all these little, we
Yeah.
know the major nurseries, but then we don't know the little sellers that are
Right.
popping up at markets. And it seems like that's a great way to get
Yeah.
the native plants. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for
wonderful.
your
Yeah,
presentation. One more thing I noticed, one of the place names that flew by had Pua on the name. So, pigs obviously been around there for a long time, but may not be the same size and shape of pig. So,
Right,
Yeah, I
yes.
heard a story about the naming of Halepua'a. I heard the story I heard from one of the aunties. She said that a missionary had come and was talking to the people in the little village, and they were distracted taking care of their pua'a, and he got disgusted and he said, "This is Halepua'a." And they decided to call it that. Anyway, when I first moved here 23 years ago, there were no pigs, and the farmers who were here said there hadn't been pigs for at least 10 years before, and they showed
Yeah.
up around 2001.
uh,
And what I perceive is they got worse and worse ever since then, until maybe the last 2 or 3 years, they may have finally leveled off.
okay.
I'm leveled off at killing in somewhere in the 30s each year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just based on complaints that we get, Steve, at this, like we've definitely seen an uptick in complaints the last 5 years or so, that just people calling with just kind of at the end of their rope, like, what can I do? And there's not a
Yeah.
lot of options,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely, yeah, put it in those terms of agricultural losses, because that's what's important to agriculture, to elected officials and
Yeah.
let game management advisory commission people know that you can't even grow, your own food to eat. So,
Yeah, yeah,
think
because
I
it's
did-
so important.
I did hear that I think if they're either considering or they're actually doing it, to allow rifle hunting in the Halepua'a section and the Keo'ahana, because it was reserved for bow hunting, which was kind of a joke. I mean, I never once saw a bow. I have seen hunters with rifles on railroad where we have the bike path, and hunters with dogs. And every time I see them, I thank them and encourage them.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I know Paige put a comment in here about Brian Lay being the GMAC rep, and it would be good for folks to be reaching out, Steve, as you mentioned, the Game Commission, and noting that this is a problem. So we're at 12 o'clock. So awesome talk, awesome discussion. I really appreciate it. Again, if you can get those volunteer opportunities over to me, I'll get them out to that broader audience. So I'd love to share that with folks. I wanted to point out, Anne, that Bill Steiner put a comment in the chat about inoculants and seeing if you can get that bacteria and soil fungi identified. So if you want to check that out. But I want to thank everybody for being here today. And again, we will have this recording up so you can share it with folks. And also, the next event we're having is going to be that Ohia Love Fest, which is going to be on November 19th from 10 to 2 at the Pahoa Community Center. If you do want to sign up for the Ohia Care Workshop, that will actually be at 9 o'clock or 1 o'clock, but we have limited space for that because you do get a free Ohia. But Anne, you're going to have a lot of native plants there, I think, to show people the various types of native plants. It's going to go beyond, the love will go beyond Ohia, I think. Is that right? You'll have other plants. Yeah, I think it'd be nice to show people the wide variety beyond Ohia that's available to, to admire and love.
Depends if I can find a ride for them.
We can probably work with you on that. I can help you with that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. I'm going to end the recording. Thanks again. Mahalo. And we'll stay on a couple minutes if folks still have some questions.